Hello and welcome to the last day of our fall US road trip, ending up here in Chicago. Finally, it was November and the final full day of this trip. We actually still have a full week to go, but the nature of the trip will change quite dramatically for the next 6 to 7 days. Let's focus on the city in hand before we jet off early tomorrow for a completely different kind of pace. Today was full on sightseeing as we tried to squeeze in as much juice out of our 2-day Go City Pass as possible. We started the day off with our complimentary breakfast once again in the Ventu restaurant. Today we had some amazing French toast and the irresistible confit duck and waffles. An amazing way to kick off the day. First attraction that we did on the pass was the hop-on, hop-off bus tour. Park tour, park transport, we love these little fun rides around the city, and while we usually wince at the prices charged, with the pass they always feel great. You get to see the city from a nice vantage point, and get interesting narration, and get transport to and from certain locations and attractions in the city. The tours do one large loop and you can hop off at various attractions and then back on to ride along to the next. They are not always the best form of transport and you can end up waiting a while for a bus, but they are pretty regular, and as they are literally taking you to the exact locations you want to visit, you get a really good tour of the city when used with the Go City Pass. We had planned on using this yesterday as they are great for orientating yourself in the city, but as it snowed we figured we would pass. Open top buses are not great in the snow. Today, although it was pretty frigid, barely above freezing, it was bright, clear and gloriously sunny. A great day to see the city. The tour started off right next to our hotel at the DuSable Bridge. We arrived promptly at 9 AM, but the bus did not show up immediately. We assumed this was due to the off-season, and sure enough, one arrived eventually. The route starts off following the East Wacker Drive along the river before our first stop at the Willis Tower. Here we hopped off for our next attraction. The Willis Tower is essentially the second tallest building in the country and the tallest observation deck in the Western Hemisphere. It is a stunning building that towers over the Chicago skyline in a really imposing manner, especially due to the rest of the skyline's quite low-rise nature. The big bus tour dropped us right outside and we headed in using the pass to get us straight to the top.
Welcome to the Skydeck. You're on your way to the top of the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. Along the way, you can watch as we pass by some of the tallest buildings, monuments, and structures in the world. You're riding up this 1,450-foot modern marvel in one of the tower's 104 elevator cars. Your trip to the Skydeck will only take about a minute. That means your elevator is traveling at a speed of more than 24 feet per second. The tower opened its doors in 1973 and held the title of the world's tallest building for 25 years. The west antenna reaches 1,730 feet above the Chicago streets. We're now passing 850 feet in San Francisco's Transamerica Pyramid, 970 feet in the Yokohama Landmark Tower, Japan's tallest building, 1,062 feet in Paris's stunning Eiffel Tower, the Bank of China Tower in Hong Kong, 1,250 feet in the Empire State Building in New York. And now we're here, 103 stories up. Welcome to the top.
The highest observation deck in America offers a seriously stunning view of the city. Lake Michigan was glorious as the blue waters shimmered under the clear blue skies. The sun was blazing, offering a pretty harsh light and making photography pretty challenging, especially through the reflective windows. This is the reason we prefer outdoor decks. But the view from this height was still stunning as you look down on the myriad of towering buildings, still with a smattering of yesterday's snow. The views up and down the coast of Lake Michigan are truly inspiring. While we love the New York skyline from above, the Chicago skyline has a much more contrast and is overall a more aesthetically pleasing picture. It seems not enough to simply have a fantastic observation deck these days, you need a gimmick. The tilt at the 360 Chicago we visited yesterday was one such poor gimmick. At the Skydeck, this gimmick is the ledge, and this is much more worthwhile. While tilt is a paid extra, access to the ledge is free, and they have a great system for accessing the ledge. After a short queue, you get 5 minutes of time in the box by yourself. You simply queue and then the agent assigns you a ledge and you can do as you please for a set amount of time in your own little space. Once your time is up, if you want more time, you can simply join the back of the queue and have another slot. The ledge is basically a glass box bolted onto the side of the building, and that's about it. The floor gives way to 1,353 feet of air to the pavement below. This gives you endless possibilities for envy-inducing selfies and photo possibilities. We loved our time in the box just trying out shots and making clever content. We spent around an hour at the top before heading back down, grabbing a coffee and hopping back onto the big bus to carry on with the tour. The next part of the tour was a little tedious as the route zigzags through downtown Chicago and was a little slow due to the traffic. The guide pointed out several interesting landmarks before the bus finally exited the city centre and out and off towards the museum campus. This is why we wanted to use the tour yesterday, as we would have hopped off here, but the thought of the open top bus in the snow was not a pleasant one. Even today with the sun blazing, it was freezing cold up top, but still really exhilarating. We didn't hop off at the museum campus other than to grab a few shots of the shoreline vista and instead carried on to the next stop, Navy Pier. At Navy Pier there are usually many options for shoreline cruises, but due to the adverse weather and late season, most trips were not operating. In fact, we were pretty limited to options. In the end we went with the Shoreline Cruisers and their Architecture River Cruise. This was only 1.5 hours and runs right up the Chicago River, taking in some of the best sights in the city. The cruise was not for another 45 minutes, so we spent some time just exploring the pier and getting some wonderful shots of the city. We returned about 10 minutes before the cruise to get a good position on the boat. We really enjoyed the cruise. We sat right up front near the narrator, who regaled us with tales and information about the various buildings that line the waterways. There was some history, some architecture and design talk, and some pop culture such as filming locations. It was a great tour, and along with some of the most stunning vistas in the city, we have to recommend this as one of the city's must-dos. There was a full bar on board, although we resisted and just relaxed as the boat sailed along. The only downside was the cold temperatures. This would have been much more pleasant a little earlier in the year or around spring. However, it was not as cold as it could have been, with the daytime temps now up towards around 45 degrees.
Trump International Hotel and Tower was completed in 2009, designed by a world-famous architect with his roots right here in Chicago, and a man by the name of Adrian Smith. We call Adrian Smith the tallest architect in the world, not because of his height, but because of Marina City. Marina City completed in the mid-1960s. The tower is actually constructed as a ploy to draw residents to the central business district or loop area of Chicago. They call it the loop associated with public transit transmitted right around this area. No one was really living in the loop in the late 1950s, early 1960s. So the architect of Marina City actually studied. That's our 17th football field with an office space. At different times in the century, it's been home to the construction of Fort Pier Road, the military completed in 1803. The first large gathering of people here in Chicago. Prior to this, there were settlers like Jean-Baptiste who there warehouse for raw meat. Chicago has a very rich history in the meatpacking industry. Back in the industry bartender, Carmen Bobby, you get hard to stop and something they were going to Bloody Marys. Here's this buddy, a pretty interesting conundrum in design. You see train tracks running on one side of the power plant, a river running on another side of the reception in the bottom of the military power. Alright, left hand side, let's see the Bank of America building, 2021 is marked out who's operating. It was $800 million. The river and the little trains that go under the over there, they go all the way to Union Place to the building. And now I think that this is just simple. I mean, this is the device in Chicago. You just go down, little points, you go down the until it was purchased in 2016 by developers who followed $900 million. Is there any questions you may have? Just so I can do my best to answer questions. Really enjoy this video. It's one of my favorites. This is your Rubik's Cube formation. I got the Pier Tower. Left hand side will front west, right hand side will front east. In the middle here is one of the newest completed skyscrapers in the city, 4.7. Alright, come along the right hand side. We'll see buildings to the left of this white building. It's a beige building, Willis Tower, really ornate. Two rectangles stacked on top of each other with a dome on top of it. Also, coincidentally, been able to go from either storage to a lake in the spring or from the lake back to storage in the fall. The world's most beautiful office building. Allison was submitted their design. They won. I'd say they did a pretty good job. In fact, established Chicago.
The boat finally returned to the pier, offering the final stunning views of the lakeside skyline. We hopped off and headed over to the pier's attraction areas. For the Navy Pier, the pass includes a ride on the Ferris wheel and 3 other rides, valued at a whopping $51. However, due to time constraints and some rides being closed due to the season, we opted to just take a ride on the wheel. So rather than $51, this was worth just $22 each. The Centennial Wheel is the latest Navy Pier Ferris wheel and is built on the location of the only real Ferris wheel ever built. The Ferris wheel was created here by George Ferris Jr. for the 1893 World's Fair. The Centennial Wheel is a touch smaller than the original, but still towers nearly 200 feet over the Lake Michigan and gives stunning views of the city. You get several laps around the loop in the enclosed cars with incredible views. The light was stunning now, with the low winter sun coloured by little high altitude cloud, and the lake glowing under the towering skyscrapers. A really wonderful experience.
Born in the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, the Ferris wheel is an icon of Chicago history and the centerpiece of this landmark attraction, offering incredible views of Lake Michigan on one wheel, and on your left look the beautiful skyline of the river. And Bay Park and Centennial Wheel opened in 1909 in Chicago. Make note of this view, for they have no magic to disturb it. It was first the addition of what is known today as Bay Pier, and the episode of art, culture, and connected gave walks the ability to shine on the special area of Lake Michigan, providing endless opportunities for discovery and wondering. Thank you for visiting Bay Pier. We hope you enjoy your ride on the Centennial Wheel.
From here we got back into the bus to head into the city centre. We hopped off at the water tower in the centre of the Magnificent Mile, as we wanted to do a touch of shopping and check out the Holy Name Cathedral, featured in the Miracle on 34th Street movie. We arrived at a pretty awkward time as the congregation was just arriving for Mass, so we just popped in and grabbed a couple of photos. A beautiful church. We had a walking tour planned for the evening, but unfortunately this was cancelled and we were not able to rebook, so on this low note we kind of called time on the trip. We grabbed some quick fast food and headed back to the hotel to grab some final drinks and enjoy our resort credit at the hotel, then headed back to the room to organise and prepare for the departure tomorrow, which would be bright and early. Review of the Go City Chicago All-Inclusive Pass. We purchased a 2-day all-inclusive pass and used a total of 7 attractions. This would have cost $293.49 if we had bought the attractions separately. This is a saving of $123.49, which is pretty incredible. However, we were actually pretty disappointed with this. Around 50% saving is really nothing to be sniffed at, and we should have been pretty impressed with this. We certainly saved a lot of money and saw a lot of the city, more than we would have done without the pass. However, we just know we could have saved more. Some of this was weather, some due to the fact that attractions were slowing down for the season, and some due to time constraints and us doing other things. We were a bit annoyed about the Mobster walking tour that cancelled on us, as we could have planned something else for that time. Plus, we really wanted to do that tour. We also did not get full value out of the Navy Pier, due to some attractions being closed for the season. There were some speedboat tours you could do, but these were not operating due to the weather. Overall, we would have got much better value out of the pass if we had used it during the warmer months, but even so, we got a lot out of it, with day 1 packing in some amazing museums, and day 2 being a real sightseeing day. Also, another day would have only cost us an extra $30, and we could have done a lot of attractions in that time. Overall, the pass was really good, and we wouldn't have wanted to have been without it. It really opened up the city and got us to see and do far more than we would have done just doing things on our own. We think the big bus tour is probably overpriced, but being on the pass, it felt great value and we got a fun tour around the city with the added bonus of being able to hop off at all the attractions we wanted to visit. Overall, if the attractions on the pass are ones you want to visit, we highly recommend the pass. It's almost guaranteed to save you money. In fact, it is guaranteed to save you money, and they will give you a refund of the difference if you don't. But more than that, you just see so much more with it. So we highly recommend you get a pass if you're spending a few days in this amazing city. And that's all for now. Tomorrow we hop on a plane and head down south to North Carolina to try and catch some of the last of the year's good weather. Make sure you like and subscribe to follow along with that part of the trip.